Hey YouTube, making a video to answer a question. Can big guys rollerblade, or inline skate as I guess it's properly called? So I just got back into skating a couple months ago after maybe 20-year layoff. My 14-year-old daughter decided to start skating and I wanted to try it with her. But what I really came to find out is there's really not a lot of information out there for overweight skaters looking to get back into it. And I wanted to share just a little bit about my journey. A couple important things to consider. One is, have you ever skated before? So I'll tell you, if you're getting back into it and you're overweight, it's going to be uncomfortable. It really is going to be uncomfortable, but it's certainly doable. And the learning curve, I think, is pretty steep if you've been a skater before. Maybe not the exercise to take up if you haven't skated before. It actually is kind of like riding a bike. It comes back pretty quick. But there's a lot of differences. Case in point, last time I rollerbladed, I was probably 150 to 180 pounds somewhere. I topped out this winter at 380. I'm down into the 330s now, and there's a big difference between falling at 150 and 330. It's a world of difference. So you want to make sure you've got a little bit of skill to kind of go into this with. It's important. And even yet, you're gonna fall. I've taken some really nasty falls even in the last couple of weeks. Not been fun, but it's all part of the journey. And then really what I wanted to spend the most of this time on is talking about skate setup, which is the piece that took me the longest to figure out. I went through a lot of online blogs and Reddits and all of that, and I really just couldn't find a lot of information on really the right setup. Going to Rollerblade, which is probably the most well-known roller or inline skate brand in the world. They really don't have a lot for you if you're a bigger person. In fact, the website, aside from their really big boots, the XLs that are designed for huge feet and huge people, tall people, that seems like it can take a lot of weight. The Rollerblade website says the weight limits is like 220, and I obviously knew there had to be a way to do a skate setup, beyond that point, and that's kind of what my journey was all about. So really kind of three things to consider: the boot and the insole, the frame, and then obviously wheels and bearings. And I've tried a handful of different setups, and some worked well, some didn't. So again, I've gone through quite a bit of time and money. I'm hoping that maybe this video can help make sure that you don't, if you're just getting back into things. I'll just kind of throw out, there's really no need to subscribe or hit the notify on YouTube because I don't do a lot of videos. I wanted to do this one specifically. But one favor I would ask is, if you find this information helpful, hit the like button. My hope, again, and my goal here is to make sure that for the folks that do want to get into skating, that are carrying some extra weight, they don't have to go through the search that I did on finding some useful information. So hopefully this information is useful, and if it is, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, I'd appreciate it and help get this out there. Equally as important, if there's anything that you can expand on, add into the conversation, hit it in the comments, or if I say anything incorrect and you can correct me. Again, this is a couple of months of research and so forth on my part. I am far from an expert at this point, and so I know there's probably a lot of experts out there that will have even more to add, and I'd appreciate it, and I'm sure the rest of the folks watching this video would as well. All right, so let's start with the boot, and I'm actually going to show you a couple of different setups here on boots. So when it comes to the boot, which is one of the more important things, the material matters, the size obviously. Another big thing is width. What I noticed is, as I gained weight, my feet got a little wider too, and so that the combination of the material size and width really will kind of lead to the comfort, performance, and support of the boot that you have. I'm going to start with kind of what I would recommend in terms of a boot, and that's not this type of skate, but this type of material, and that's a hard plastic material. That's going to be very supportive for you. There's a lot of conversations out there in some of the Reddit posts on, if you're overweight, then start with a soft boot like a K2. I'll tell you, I think that's not great for ankle support, and I've actually been a pretty strong skater in the past, and I've struggled with those types of boots. So I'd recommend a harder plastic boot. But there are a couple of different other kinds of boots. The soft shell kind, which is like this. It's kind of a meshier, meshier material. Generally, it comes with fairly weak support, plastic piece that goes around this this shell. This is my daughter's rollerblade macro blade, which is what she started on. Again, I wouldn't even try and attempt something as flimsy as this. So yes, it probably is really comfortable, but unless you're starting with really strong ankles to start, you're probably going to put a lot of torque on your ankles, and this is mesh. It's not going to be great. And then another one that I actually did find to be a fairly good way to kind of start out is this is an integrated liner, so it's a one piece. It doesn't have a separate boot and hard boot and liner inside. It's all kind of one piece. So it is kind of softer material on the top and right here. This here is it's a Seba Freestyle. It's an older model now. That I think the most common name is the Seba Trix. It has a carbon fiber boot, so it's really hard on the bottom all the way through. The bottom here is carbon fiber, a softer material at the top, and actually some interesting, I forget what they call it, some kind of tripod frame here that actually is fairly supportive side to side and gives you a decent amount of front and back movement. Now this still is going to put a lot more kind of pressure and making you work harder on your ankles. But it's certainly better than the soft boot from my experience, and this is one of the skates that I do skate at this point. So again, this is a Seba World Freestyle Championship. Again, the latest thing now is the Trix. The one thing about Sebas that I've liked is they are a wider boot just generally. The other boot that I skate that I'll share at the end is my favorite boot. Again, if you have a little bit of wider foot, these Sebas seem to work really well for that. So that's on boots. Obviously, the next kind of piece that I would get into is just wheels. And there's a bunch of different kinds of wheels out there. Again, if we start with this aggressive skate, really small wheels. These are 57 millimeters, I think. Yeah, 57 millimeters. So really small skate for ramps and things like that. My guess is most of you guys that would just get back into skating are probably not going aggressive. Although I know some people are that started aggressive and are getting back into it. And I'll throw a shout out at the end to a gentleman that I started following that's incredible 300 pound plus blader in his, I think, 30s or early 40s that is doing some really cool stuff. In any case, so small wheels are really aggressive. The most common probably is in the range of an 80 millimeter wheel. So this is a 80 millimeter wheel here. That's kind of the most common on a blade. I think this macro blade that I showed you earlier has got these 80 millimeter wheels. Most of these recreational skates are probably going to be in that range. What I generally find is it's either these 80s or if you have a smaller foot, the kind of stock wheels on a recreational skate might go like a 76. This is a 76 here. So not a whole lot of difference between, let me back up a little bit here, between those two, a couple millimeters. But those are the most common. The other thing you'll notice on the wheels is you're going to have a millimeter size, and you're also going to have a hardness. This one here is an 84A. All the hardnesses are going to have an A after that. It's just the ranking system that they use, or the hardness system, and it's the gentleman's last name that came up with it, that the A stands for. Most wheels are going to go between like in the low 80s to mid to high 90s in terms of what their hardness looks like. And hardness makes a big deal in terms of what the ride looks like. So the harder the ride, or the harder the wheel is, the easier it is, I believe, to slide in them. The less wear you're going to see on the wheel. The less the number is, the more grippy it's going to be. That also tends to be sometimes slower then. So what I would say is you're going to want to be in the mid 80s at least on your wheels. I find that the 85s or so are good. They still give you plenty of grip. They don't wear quite as much as like this 82A, which I would burn through these in a couple of days. They're slow. They wear a lot if you have a lot of weight going on. So I'd go for something like this is a good 84A, 85A. 80 millimeter is going to be a good size wheel for you. A lot of other fun things you can do with wheels. There are some wheels that light up as well. So this is another Seba wheel that's 85A, 80 millimeters, and it lights up. So the kids have fun with this at night. These tend to be a little slower. So if you're getting back into it, I wouldn't start with an illuminated wheel. It has a special piece in the core that kind of slows the skates down and creates a little friction to cause the lights to go on. So that's maybe not the starting point for for your wheels. Most of the wheels, actually, the material is urethane. So you're going to see that in most of the wheels that are going to be recreational skates and so forth. I would recommend that you find wheels that are poured in the USA. There's a lot of nice looking wheels out there that are kind of cheaply made, and you'll see that all over YouTube and so forth. So a lot of good USA wheels, and that seems to be the place to get the best urethane and the best pour today. So that's on that. On the bearing side, I actually thought bearings would matter a whole lot more than they do, and I'm sure most of you watching understand what a bearing is, but just real quick. So the bearing is the part inside of the wheel, right here. The part that actually the axle goes through and then it spins along the bearing, so it goes inside the centerpiece of the wheel. A lot of different bearings out there. You'll see that ABEC, A-B-E-C, which stands for Annular Bearing Engineering Committee. Something I have no idea what that is, but it's I guess the group that does most of the bearing ratings. And you'll see most bearings have this ABEC rating somewhere generally between a 5 and a 9. I can tell you they say the higher the ABEC rating, the better precision, efficiency, possibility for greater speed. I haven't seen a whole lot of difference. I've been riding 7s and 9s primarily. They ride about the same to me. I can't tell any noticeable difference. What I can tell though is the manufacturer. So I've had good bearings made by brand names like Twin Cam, and Rollerblade I think runs the Twin Cam, and some other just kind of name brands. And also I bought some just generic bearings. I can tell you a good name brand ABEC 7 will roll better than a generic ABEC 9 in my experience. So I don't put too much weight and so much on the ratings is just making sure they're coming from a good manufacturer. Not all bearings are ABEC rated. Swiss I believe has a different scale. There's Bones and other popular bearings that don't have any rating at all. And there's also a couple of other rating types. There's a ILQ. Is one, and I think an SQ is another rating system. So ABEC is the most well known out there. But I wouldn't put a whole lot of weight on the bearings. I thought they would matter a lot more. I've tried a bunch of them. I can tell you they haven't mattered as much as other things. You also find there's a bunch of different bearing types. So there's kind of just the regular bearings. There's ceramic bearings, which tend to run real expensive. No need to even be thinking about that at this point. Then there's sealed and unsealed bearings, which just has to do with the serviceability of being able to get in and kind of clean out the bearings. And just how much they hold out the elements. Again, I wouldn't worry too much about it. For anything that you really just don't need to worry about for now, just get a good name manufacturer bearing and you're good to go. There's so many other parts that are going to matter a whole lot more to you as you're just getting started than the bearing, so I wouldn't put a ton of time into that. I'll talk about which ones I use if you are interested, but it's I think the least important of all the things we're talking about. All right, let's get on to frames. And frames do matter a whole lot. There's a couple of different considerations with frames: what material they are, the mounting type, and then the length. And the length typically has to do with the wheels that they go into. So just getting to materials first, a lot of the materials you'll see used for frames are plastic. Other commonly used frame types are aluminum and carbon fiber. Let's start with the plastic. And I'm going to start with the plastic you don't want to get. This one actually does have a steel frame on it, so that's good. This one has a plastic frame on it. These are aggressive skates. They're actually, the plastic on these is okay. It's a lot lower to the ground. The frames here actually go into a sole plate, which is this part of a aggressive skate, and then into the boot. So because of that, you don't have as much torque on the actual frame as other frames that are taller, which get to be a little bit more problematic. So avoid plastic, but plastic on aggressives are okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about aggressives in a second. The next kind is most common, which is aluminum frames. So here's some aluminum frames on this one here. There's a couple of different types of aluminum. There's molded, pressed, or extruded. And basically what that has to do is just how it's actually put together. So extruded frames are made from one block of aluminum, and then they're machined into the kind of the final format. The more common, and that's a more expensive process to go through to kind of machine it out of one block, but it also means they're a lot more solid. So that's the most solid way you can do it. Molded is more common and less rigid than the extruded frames, and that's probably most common. This one actually is a molded frame, so it's an aluminum frame as well. But it's poured into a mold, and then it's not kind of a single block. It's a little less rigid. Honestly, I haven't heard too much about any aluminum frame in terms of the frame itself breaking. So I like the extruded just because it's peace of mind for me that it's as solid as it could possibly be. The more important thing is just how the frame is mounted onto the boot itself. This is what you would not want. So this one is some kind of screw system. This one is not really designed to be changed out. It's kind of a weak on the side screw that's meant to be kind of a permanent part of the boot, and this will have a chance of just kind of ripping out. It's also got a plastic bottom here, not a steel plate, so you definitely would want some steel plates kind of connecting the boot to this thing to just give it some rigidity. Again, this is not meant at all for anybody of any kind of weight, and this would be a problem. This one with this aluminum frame, again, it's an extruded aluminum frame. It's going into part of it looks like carbon fiber here, but it actually is steel plates under it. There's about, I think, 9 different holes in here. So the 165 is bolted in there, bolted in here. This is a really solid mount. You're going steel to steel all the way through this to an extruded frame. This thing is not going anywhere in my experience. I've put plenty of miles on these skates. I've had no problems even with any wiggle in the frame at all, and it's not going to go anywhere. Just to kind of get a look at what that looks like, this is also a 165 frame, so that's kind of what you just saw there. So you'll see here that these tend to be more customizable too. You got a couple of different holes here, again, and 9 different holes on the boot. So it gives you a lot of room of where exactly you want that to line up. And you can, I'll pick this back up one more time. You can kind of see here that it's kind of back here. I'm on the first of those 2 holes here. So it's sitting back a little bit if I wanted the frame forward a little bit for whatever reason. Again, plenty of maneuverability on this frame, and this is a 165 mount is what this one is called, and that's a common one. I'm going to skip my notes here just to keep this thing moving along. So again, when we get to the mounting, we looked at the bolted to the frame. We looked at the 165. A couple of other common ones. This one is a UFS. It stands for Universal Frame System. It comes with 2 bolts, one here, one here. It's just drilled in. Again, this is a pretty solid one. You'll see this UFS stands for Universal Frame System. It is very commonly used on these aggressive skates. There's a couple other aggressive skates that are doing some cool things, which is an extruded piece of plastic. So actually there is no separation between the frame, the sole plate, and the boot. It is just one piece of molded. As an example, the USD Aeons, which are a popular skate, especially for heavy skaters getting into aggressive or re-getting into them. The reason that's popular is it is a wider boot. It's a good quality make, and again, one solid piece all the way around makes it just a solid fit as well. A couple other things that you'll want to watch for with your frames. One of them is one of the things that has changed is a lot of the new frames are rockerable. And I don't know if you can see this real well or not, but this one actually, you can see I can push down on it and the frame tilts at both ends. So really this particular frame, this is a good quality. It's a Seba frame. It's actually what came with the carbon fiber skates that I showed you. But it actually has a 4mm rocker on the first and back wheel, which means at any given time you're only riding on 2 wheels. It gives you amazing capability to carve and maneuver real easily. it is not the steady place to start. I also just think, and this may be more in my head, that putting weight fully on 2 axles instead of spreading the weight out across 4 also is, again, in my mind, more likely that you're going to have some kind of problem with the wheel or the axle, or putting too much pressure on the wheel. So it is an unsteady way to get started. Again, it's kind of fun when you do get started to give that maneuverability. This particular one is a 4mm front and back. It's called a banana rocker, and for obvious reasons. It kind of has that banana shape. Again, a lot of hockey skates and slalom skates will have that type of design, as opposed to this is another Seba that's made for a little shorter wheel, but there's no movement here at all. This is all solid, 4 flat on the ground. And that's a good way to start. There is another rocker that's come out, excuse me, called a natural rocker, and I'm going to show you that a little bit later. It's pretty amazing, and it may be something to consider. So with that, we talked about the wheels, we talked about the frames, we talked about the boot a little bit. We didn't talk too much about liners. Here's a common liner. Liner is something that actually goes into the boot of a skate. Most boots will have a separate liner. This is something you also want to watch when you're carrying some weight. There's kind of a give and take here of a lot of these liners. This is the one that came with my skates that I use today, that we'll talk about in a second. It has a lot of padding, but it also, all that padding really squishes your foot in, and I found this to be pretty uncomfortable. This is a FR skate liner. Again, a lot of comfort, a lot of padding here, but really was squeezing my foot, and I found it uncomfortable. Some of the liners will also come with a raised heel cap. Again, this does kind of 2 things. One, the raised heel will put you forward in your skate a little bit. That just makes it a little less likely that you're going to have that kind of backward slide moment, and it also works as a shock absorber, which is kind of nice if you're jumping, but even with some weight, just having something to kind of protect your heel there is really nice. So the liner will matter. There's a lot of good information on liners. I'll share with you in a second my favorite one, but the boot and the liner kind of setup, having a good liner inside of a good hard shell boot would be my pretty firm recommendation as you're just getting started. So with that, let's talk about my current and recommended setup for somebody just getting back into skating. This skate right here, let's undo this thing real quick. The other thing that I love about, skating technology has come such a long way in the 20 years since I've skated. Even just cool things like backpacks that are designed for skating. It's really kind of cool. But just the technology overall. All right, so there's a skate we'll look at. All right, so this is, from everything I could see online, the #1 recommended skate for people just kind of getting into recreational and urban skating. I was an urban skater. I wasn't around for a lot of the aggressive. They were just coming out as I was exiting skating. I had 1 pair just towards the end, but my thing was just city skating. I loved going and city skating and jumping and riding downstairs and all that kind of stuff. And so that's really what I wanted to get back into. This is a great setup for that. This is a FR, is the brand. They actually used to be part of Seba, which was the other boot that you saw, so also known for kind of a wide design. This is the FR brand, and the model is also FR. It's the FR1. You'll actually see there's an FR1, 2, 3, and then an FRX. The FR1 is the best quality of the boots that they make. Again, wide boot, very rigid, very stiff, kind of all the way around. You'll have your lace-up system. You'll have a 45-degree strap, which is, I love this thing. And these straps have come a long way too. This one is actually a ratchet strap, so you just put it in there a little bit, and then you can ratchet it down and get it really tight. This top one doesn't have a ratchet, but it's a really nice system. Really gets you deep into the boot and just hold your skate pretty solidly in there. Aside from this boot, I also, as I mentioned, got a different liner. This was a little bit of an upgrade from a money perspective, but I did a lot of looking around to kind of what is the best liner out there. And again, I didn't mind spending a little bit of money because I just wanted to be comfortable and just get some good stuff to skate with. So this is an Intuition V2. Intuition makes both inline skate and ski liners. They are known as the best in the business. This is a very soft and yet very firm kind of foam material that this makes out. So a lot easier to get in the skate. Had a lot more room. It's also heat moldable, so you actually put a bag of rice in there for a couple minutes in a microwave and heat it up and then stick it in the skate for a couple minutes. It warms it up and then you put your foot in there and it molds. Really kind of a cool thing. This one also has a heel raise in the bottom. I've taken that out now, and we'll talk about why just in a second here. But this is the greatest liner I could find, and of all the ones that I've tried. There's also another one that's getting really popular for people with wider feet. It's very kind of similar, I think, in material, called a MyFit Second Skin. So that also one I've heard good things about for people that have some weight, a little bit cheaper of an option than the Intuition. And then there's a new one by Royce's. That just came out that also is getting good reviews. So you can check out if you want some different liners. But this one's been around for a while. It's got the best ratings. Again, it's a little bit pricey. The other thing that I've heard, and I haven't run into this myself because I've only had these for just a bit now, is they can really start smelling after a while. So again, I haven't run into that myself, but I've heard that from other folks. The problem that I did have with this liner, though, when I bought it was the other liner that went in the skate was that one that was really thick. So when I got this one in, it started moving around a little bit, and it didn't feel as snug in this wider, especially as I molded it to my foot. So I also got an insole. This here is a Super Feet. It's a Hockey Comfort. There's also a version of this that's the Carbon Pro Hockey. I actually found this one to be a little bit too stiff. I'm going to be sending this one back to the skate shop. It looks pretty much the same, but this material here is just like really rigid. I just had a lot of arch pain when I had this on there. I didn't find it to be comfortable. Same thing. It's kind of same manufacturer. The material is just a little bit more forgiving, so I had a little less pain in this one. So I've got the Super Feets Hockey Comfort. There's actually a good debate on the internet on for the Intuition specifically, should I put the insole inside of the boot or on the bottom? I've tried it both ways, and you'll see arguments both ways if you look at it. But I tried it actually outside of the skate, and it works the best. So I actually heat molded the boot with the insole into the boot. So this is actually taking the shape of the insole, but my feet are against the Intuition liner, which is pretty squishy and comfortable. So that is the setup with that. Kind of finishing this off. In terms of frames, this is the best frame I could find. And I've skated a lot of different frames. You can see some different frames sitting out here. Rockered and Flat by Seba, and there's a couple others that I've tried. This one is made by Endless Blading Company. It's what they call a natural rocker. And what that means is it's got a very, very slight 1 millimeter rocker. And so you really don't even feel it. I don't feel the rocker at all. I definitely can tell, though, when I'm maneuvering, that it's a whole different experience than when I'm on a flat 4. The flat 4 for 90 millimeters, which is a little bit bigger of a wheel, is a little bit more, it's stable, but it's hard to maneuver without a little bit of a rocker on there. I find the 90s to be the best. Again, with my weight, I like a bigger wheel. The bigger wheel rolls easier. It's a little bit more comfortable. It felt like the 80s felt to me, 150 pounds ago. But it rolls really smoothly, and with the natural rocker and the Endless, it's been a real joy and a real nice experience. The other thing that's really unique about the Endless is what you'll see here is you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4 holes for this setup. So this one is actually a 90 millimeter frame, so it holds 4 90 millimeter wheels. You'll also see one hole here. What that is meant for is it also can be set up as 3 110s. So one of the things that also has gotten popular is starting to ride these bigger wheels, these 110 millimeter wheels. There's even 125s that you'll see some people riding. So this one you could actually take off these 4 wheels and instead put a wheel here, here, and here. So 3 wheels. with these bigger 110s. And so I have that set up. And it's kind of nice to be able to swap the wheels out without having to take the frame off in order to do that. So that's a nice to have. It wasn't the reason why I got the frame. The reason I got the frame was I did a lot of research on the best frames for 90mm wheels. I knew I had heard about this natural rocker. There's another company out there that's doing something similar called Wizards. They're really expensive, but they have also a natural rocker. These endless frames are a little bit cheaper, and I thought the maneuverability or the versatility, excuse me, of having the 3 and 4 wheel setup made that a good choice for me. Aside from that, I've got Rollerblade Supreme wheels on this one. I've got some FR Urban Speeds on the other one. They're both 90mm wheels. Both are good. I don't know that I like one more than the other. To be honest with you, they're both good wheels. And I'm skating in these skates. I believe it's an ABEX 7, and in the other skate, I'm skating these Rollerblade Twin Cam IQL 9 Pro bearings. That's a good bearing, and it's these are on sale right now for I think like $45 or something. So they were pretty reasonable. So that's my skate. Again, a lot of custom work went into this one. FR boot, Intuition liner, Superfeet Superfeet's Comfort Hockey insole in it, endless blade frame, and the Supreme 90mm wheels is kind of the trial and error that I got to as my very best skate. I'm going to switch it over and show you a little bit of footage of me actually skating them, just so you can kind of see what they kind of look like on the roll and the maneuverability, and then we'll come back and close it out. So I'll be back in a second. All right, so here we go. And we've got the FR, I guess it's Series 1 with Intuition liners, 90mm wheels. You can see they are really very agile for a 90mm wheel. It's probably going to get a little noisy here as we pick up a little steam with the mic. Just apologize for that. But yeah, these are staying pretty steady. Not a problem. We're getting a little uphill here. So one of the things I did was the Intuition liners are pretty slippery on the bottom, and against slippery surface of the boot they're sliding a little bit, and that is where the Superfeets comes in kind of handy. Just look again at the skates, and there's Sydney way up there, so we're gonna see if we can catch up with her, and we'll talk to you in a second. So yeah, it's just with these on, you can get some pretty good just kind of moving around like a hockey skate almost, but it's on 90s. So again, overall good skate. Sydney's taking hers off. I think we're done for the day. See ya. All right, so we're back to close things out. So yeah, it's been fun to get out again and skate a little bit. My daughter Sydney's a big part of the reason that I've got out. There'll be some other videos on the channel so you can see her kind of skating and starting to get familiar with skate parks and all of that. I've got some new aggressive skates on the way, so I'm excited to have those come and play around with them a little bit as well. I did want to do a couple of shout outs to close things out. There's a lot of people that just helped me kind of figure out this setup. And I won't even barely scratch the surface. Again, I've been kind of a madman all over the internet trying to kind of figure out what's what and talk to whoever I can talk to figure out the right skate setup. So there's 3 skate shops that I would definitely recommend as you're kind of looking into things. The one thing that I have found out to be pretty important here is support your local skate shop, support some of the mom and pop online and independent owned and operated inline skate shops. If you can avoid buying things on Amazon, do that. This has been an industry that was big in the 90s, early 2000s, and kind of died off. There's been some shops, some individuals that have kept things going, and now as we're getting back into growth mode, hopefully for rollerblades, I'm hoping that they do really well. They deserve it to kind of stay through, weather the storm of the kind of the industry ups and downs. And so again, I would encourage you to, if you can, support these guys. So I've bought blades and parts from a bunch of different shops. The three that I've probably mostly bought from is Pro Skater Place, and I'll put the links in the description below for all the individuals and people that I'm about to mention. So Pro Skater's Place, it's a Canadian shop. It's got shops in both Toronto and Vancouver. A nice website. They got plenty of good material on there: skates, parts, accessories, pads, etc. And I bought my Seba World Freestyle Skating Champion skates from them. That was my first skate coming back into it. Great. They were great to deal with, and have been super responsive on questions and things. The second is Shop Task, and they have locations, I believe, both in Vancouver and Seattle. The guy that owns it is a big into this wizard skating that I was talking about, so go check them out. He has some pretty cool videos on YouTube kind of showing that style of skating, which has been pretty cool to watch. They've been great to work with. I've bought some bunch of stuff from them as well. And then most commonly, more recently, I've bought a lot of stuff from Inline Warehouse, which is based in San Luis Obispo, just up the road for me, probably 100 or so miles. But been great to just see there's a local shop still out there, and so I've been wanting to support them as much as I could. So I've bought a couple of pair of blades from them, and some frames and some wheels and a bunch of different stuff. So so those skate shops are worth taking a look at. For individuals, if you're into skating and looking for some motivation, if you fall into this kind of demographic that I'm talking to, Older Bladers was the first guy that I found when I started looking for kind of bigger people rollerblading. I found a video that he put out called "My 300-Pound Blade Life." The guy is named Chris. He's incredible. He's the best aggressive skater that I've seen over 300 pounds for sure. Really fluid guy. Obviously, he did a lot of skating back in the day. I think he also kind of took a decade off or so and is just getting back into it. But Older Bladers, again, linked below. Check him out if you're looking for a little inspiration, motivation. Ricardo Lindo is another guy that I've subscribed to. I'm now paid subscriber. I bought a bunch of merchandise from him. This guy has a passion for inline skating like I've not seen. He's had a passion for maintaining and growing the inline skating community worldwide. He travels all over and talks to different people and does a lot of different types of skating. So he's an aggressive skater, a downhill skater, an urban skater. I've heard he's done marathons. I haven't seen marathon videos from him yet, but he's definitely a guy worth checking out and doing a great deed to get the sport back popular again. And the last one I'll mention is Blader Union. The guy that runs that channel goes by the name Big Homie Biz. He does a weekly show on just new products, new skaters, just kind of what's going on inside the inline skating community. So he's worth checking out too. So I know I talked fast. Hopefully this was somewhat useful to you. Again, if you found it useful, hit the like if you wouldn't mind, so it can just be more findable to people on Google and YouTube that are just trying to figure out if they're carrying some extra weight, how to get back into the sport of rollerblading, and trying to do my little part to get the industry growing again. So thanks for your time, and skate well.